This is the reason Freddie Mercury's sister spent millions of pounds in recent months to rescue her brother's personal history from the hands of anonymous collectors. 75-year-old Kashmira Bulsara dedicated approximately £3 million to this specific mission of reclamation. This decision arrived as the world watched the Mercury estate with renewed intensity because his Kensington home remains without a buyer nearly 2 years after it was listed. Reports from February of 2026 confirm that Garden Lodge stays on the market for £30 million, which equals roughly $38 million. While global fascination with the property persists, the estate maintains a strict vetting process for every potential buyer. Interested parties must provide proof of ample funds before managers even allow them to view the interior of the house. Seeing her brother's most intimate items auctioned off caused Kashmira ongoing distress, and that is when she decided to take action. During the 2024 Sotheby's auction, Mary Austin liquidated thousands of belongings and effectively emptied the sanctuary Freddie built over many years. Commercial success followed the sale, but the result was a deep emotional rift for those who shared Freddie's childhood and his family bloodline. Kashmira wants to ensure the things Freddie touched and loved every day do not simply become trophies on a stranger's shelf. She committed to keeping these artifacts within the Bulsara family to preserve the truth of who her brother was before he became a global icon. This reclamation project stands as a quiet but powerful statement about the value of family history over the financial gains of a public auction. Sentimental value drives her to target specific items, even if they were not the headline pieces of the original sale. Each object brought back into the family fold represents a small victory in the effort to keep Freddie's memory grounded in his real relationships. Garden Lodge remains unsold, serving as a lingering reminder of the transition the estate underwent after Freddie passed away in 1991. Historical weight often deters potential buyers who also face heavy restrictions placed on the viewing process by those managing the sale. The stalemate over the house creates a backdrop of uncertainty, which meant Kashmira's efforts to secure his personal items felt even more urgent. Beyond buying back furniture or clothing, she is essentially rescuing the physical soul of her family's history from being lost forever. Liquidating the home while reclaiming the items illustrates the different ways those close to Freddie choose to handle his physical legacy. These objects mean more than rock and roll memorabilia to the Bulsara family because they represent the private life of a son and a brother. While the world celebrates Freddie Mercury as a legendary performer, his sister works behind the scenes to ensure his own kin never forget the man behind the music. Buying back his belongings reflects a sister's love and her desire to protect a legacy she feels is being commercialized. The £3 million spent so far represents a major investment in the preservation of her brother's true essence and her family's heritage. Kashmira reached a turning point during the 2024 Sotheby's auction when she realized her brother's personal life was being dismantled piece by piece. Watching items that once sat in his home go to the highest bidder made it clear that she needed to step in. Reclaimed items now sit in a private collection where people can appreciate them for their personal meaning rather than their market value. This story highlights a sister's devotion and her commitment to keeping her brother's memory alive in a respectful and meaningful way. Struggles to sell Garden Lodge add complexity to the situation because the house stands as a symbol of the world Freddie created for himself. Strict vetting reflects the estate's desire to find a buyer who will respect the history and the legacy of the property. Kashmira views the house as only one part of the story, believing the items inside were the true keys to understanding who Freddie really was. Buying back these belongings ensures that a part of Freddie will always remain with the people who knew and loved him best. This effort focuses on a sister's promise to her brother to keep his memory alive. Everything remains safe and sound, as the Bulsara family has always protected their privacy, and this reclamation project allows them to honor Freddie's life from a distance. Kashmira considers every piece she brings home to be a tribute to the boy from Zanzibar who once carried a simple dream of becoming a star. While the world sees a legend, his sister works to protect the memory of the human being. She wants the world to remember the real man behind the music. This silent mission represents the way Kashmira Bulsara pulls her brother's heart and soul back from the auction block and returns his legacy to the family. Hidden behind high brick walls and a thick canopy of trees, the house at No. 1 Logan Place stood for years as the most famous private residence in all of London. Mary Austin called this sanctuary home for over 3 decades. Within those walls, she carefully maintained the sanctuary that Freddie had painstakingly renovated with great care and attention to detail during the middle of the 1980s. A massive shift occurred in early 2024 when Mary decided to list the property for £30 million, which signaled an end to an era many fans assumed would last forever. The market has stayed silent. Finding a new owner for such a storied location has proven difficult, though, as the house remains on the market without an offer even now in February of 2026. This long stalemate serves as a public reminder of the transition. And for Kashmira, seeing the house sit empty feels like a painful symbol of a life being dismantled. She feels the loss deeply. Freddie finally found the peace he had searched for within those walls, and his sister sister, has admitted how much it hurts to watch that sanctuary undergo a physical dissolution. Mary Austin likely views the sale as a necessary step for her own future, but Kashmira sees the loss of the original contents as the moment the property lost its soul. The soul is gone. Millions of pounds have been spent by Kashmira to reclaim items that once breathed life into the various rooms of Garden Lodge throughout her brother's life. Once the Yamaha piano and the personal journals were removed, the house became a mere structure of brick and mortar that no longer held the essence of the man himself. Their bond has frayed. These clashing perspectives have led to a quiet but firm contention between the two women who once stood as the closest figures in Freddie Mercury's world. Legacy means something different to each of them, and this disagreement is playing out globally while the house sits in a strange state of architectural limbo. The weight is immense. Reports suggest that potential buyers are actually deterred by the historical weight of the home, because moving into Freddie's final residence brings a level of scrutiny few can handle. Only a handful of individuals have crossed the threshold since the listing went live due to the incredibly strict viewing restrictions currently enforced by the estate. You pass the gates. Any billionaire interested in the property must prove their financial standing and their true intentions before they can see where Bohemian Rhapsody was once played on a baby grand. To many observers, the building feels less like a warm home and more like a museum that has been stripped of its exhibits, which makes that £30 million price difficult to justify. The green door remains. Fans used to travel from every corner of the globe to cover the high walls with messages for the man who lived behind the famous green door. Mary signaled that the era of the shrine was over when she finally decided to clean those walls and put the historical property on the open market. Privacy was his priority. For several decades, the house stood as a fortress of privacy, where Freddie could escape the relentless glare of the paparazzi and the heavy demands of fame. Life inside included Japanese art and meticulously manicured gardens, along with the quiet company of the many beloved cats that Freddie adored so much. She needed her own life. Some felt that listing this sanctuary for sale was a betrayal, but Mary saw it as a way to finally step out from under the shadow of a legend. Because the house is so deeply linked to the identity of its former owner, separating the property from the person has become almost impossible for the public. The pricing remains firm. This unique situation explains why the home has sat for nearly 2 years without a single offer, meeting the high standards and pricing set by the estate. People with £30 million to spare usually want a home where they can build their own history instead of living inside a monument to someone else. It is a monument now. The vetting process is so rigorous that it has effectively shut out all but the most serious and wealthy collectors currently active in the world today. Potential buyers must undergo a financial check to prove their liquidity and reputation before they are even told the exact address for a private viewing. Reputations are checked first. This level of gatekeeping protects the property from curiosity seekers, but it has also created a barrier for genuine buyers who might find the entire process too invasive. Much of the distress felt by Kashmira comes from the fact that the house was the ultimate creation of her brother, serving as a physical manifestation of his taste. The creation was personal. Watching the rooms be stripped of furniture and art was like seeing a living thing be hollowed out right before her eyes as the legacy changed. Her belief is that the soul of the house resided in the items Freddie chose to surround himself with, ranging from small trinkets to large pieces of furniture. The spirit has departed. Everything changed when those items were scattered across the globe during the massive Sotheby's auction. Attempting to put the pieces of his life back together makes this mission deeply significant for her. Mary Austin holds the legal right to sell the property and its contents, but Kashmira firmly believes the emotional right belongs solely to the Bulsara family. This contention between them is not about money, especially since both women are already incredibly wealthy. The dispute continues. The conflict over Garden Lodge is about more than just money, and it really comes down to what a legacy should look like in the modern world. While one side views the property as a chore that needs to be finished, the other sees it as a piece of history that requires protection. This standoff has become a public display of a private sadness that has lingered since that cold day in November of 1991. Now that the house sits empty, it acts as a quiet reminder of the man who once brought music and life to every corner. Potential buyers are often scared away by the high price and the strict vetting, but they also feel the heavy weight of living somewhere so full of history. The move into Garden Lodge means living in a place where every single room tells a story that belongs to someone else. Kashmira views that story as her own history, and she is working hard to ensure the final chapters are handled with genuine care. The world is waiting to see whose voice will eventually fill those walls, but Kashmira is making sure her brother's spirit remains through the items he loved. Every auction she joins and every pound she spends proves her belief that some things are just too personal to be owned by strangers. The items she saved will stay out of the public eye. This is the reality of life after Freddie Mercury, where the fight to define his memory is just as intense as the music he made. A buyer might eventually be found for the house, but the heart of that home has already been taken back by the person who knew him first. The Sotheby's auctions in 2023 and 2024 marked a massive moment for music history, when over 1,400 individual items were sold to the public. People watched watched in surprise as the Yamaha G2 baby grand piano, which was used to write so many hits, sold for more than £1.7 million. The handwritten lyrics for Bohemian Rhapsody also went for a huge amount, bringing in over £1.3 million from an anonymous buyer. These high-profile sales made headlines everywhere and showed the incredible market value of anything Freddie Mercury ever touched. While the media focused on the money, a personal struggle was happening within the Bulsara family. Kashmira had to watch as the physical pieces of her brother's life were labeled and sent away to collectors who might not understand the man behind the fame. While the public focused on the record prices for famous items, Kashmira looked for the things the cameras usually ignored. Her recent £3 million buyback campaign has focused on small, personal belongings that have deep emotional meaning instead of high market prices. She wanted the objects that sat on his nightstand, the books he read late at night, and the things that filled his daily life at Garden Lodge. To a fan, a stage outfit is a piece of rock history, but to a sister, it is just the clothes her brother wore while he chased his dreams. Kashmira spent this large sum of money to step in, where she felt the auction process was stripping away too much of his identity. This effort isn't about fighting billionaires for expensive trophies to show off to the world. It is a specific mission to bring the most private parts of her brother's life back to the people who truly loved him. This need to save her brother's belongings is tied to the long history of the Bulsara family. Their story started long before the fame of London, moving from Zanzibar to India before they finally found a home in the United Kingdom. As members of the Zoroastrian faith, they believe that family history and keeping the memory of their ancestors alive is a vital duty. The Bulsaras were always a small and close group that had already survived the move to a new country and the struggle of starting over. For Kashmira, the items sold at auction were not just famous things, but were the markers of a journey that saw a boy named Farouk become a legend. Seeing those items scattered all over the world felt like a blow to the connection her family worked so hard to keep. By getting these pieces back, she is trying to ground her family history so the Bulsara name stays tied to the physical proof of Freddie's life. Kashmira has spoken candidly about the emotional burden of watching her brother's private journals and stage costumes treated as mere commodities for the highest bidder. She characterized the dispersal of these items as a tragedy for their family heritage because each piece represents a specific chapter in the legendary evolution of Freddie Mercury. These private journals contain the unfiltered thoughts and creative sparks of a man who protected his inner world with great intensity during his life. Watching those pages enter the public market felt like a direct violation of the privacy Freddie fought so hard to maintain throughout his career. Although the stage costumes appeared flamboyant and public, they functioned as his personal armor and remained in his home as cherished memories of his professional journey. Seeing these belongings boxed up and sent to various corners of the globe felt like a systematic dismantling of the shared past of the Bulsara family. This profound sense of loss drove her reclamation efforts, which focus heavily on deeply personal items that provide a direct link to her brother's heart. Every item that Kashmira successfully retrieves belongs in a strictly private family archive rather than any form of public exhibition or commercial museum. She harbors no desire to create a commercial attraction because she maintains that these intimate items belong in a home instead of a glass display case. The ultimate goal involves creating a sanctuary of memory accessible only to those who share the Bulsara bloodline, preserving these treasures for future generations. This decision highlights the fundamental difference between her personal approach and the public liquidation that has characterized the recent actions of the Freddie Mercury estate. While the public might feel entitled to own a piece of rock history, Kashmira holds the view that the most intimate parts of his life must stay within the family. By keeping these reclaimed items out of the public eye, she restores a level of dignity and privacy to a legacy she felt was compromised by the auction. This archive stands as a private testament to a life lived with passion and a family bond that fame could never truly break. The news of the historic £1 billion sale of the Queen back catalog to Sony sent massive shockwaves through the music industry and global financial markets. This transaction stands as the largest acquisition of its kind in history and created an unprecedented financial windfall for every individual connected to the band's legendary work. For the heirs of the Mercury estate, the implications are staggering, as the scale of this deal elevated their personal wealth to once unimaginable levels. Mary Austin remains at the center of this financial transformation because she continues to serve as the primary beneficiary of Freddie's personal wealth and earnings. This single transaction secures Mary approximately £187.5 million, a direct result of her status as the primary heir to his estate. By February of 2026, official reports confirmed that this massive windfall placed Mary Austin among the top 100 wealthiest women in all of Britain. This level of financial power represents a significant shift from the quiet life she shared with Freddie in the early days before his global fame. While this wealth provides her with ultimate security, it also places her at the heart of a complex debate regarding the stewardship of a rock legacy. Kashmira Bulsara also receives a portion of the estate as a designated beneficiary, but she operates on a vastly different financial scale compared to the primary Austin inheritance. Although she has received millions from the success of her brother, the gap between her resources and the nearly £200 million windfall for Mary is immense. This financial divide symbolizes more than just bank balances, as it highlights the different roles these two women play in the story of Freddie's afterlife. Kashmira's decision to spend £3 million of her own money to buy back his personal belongings represents a major commitment relative to her own resources. Her focus remains on the preservation of what has already been lost to the public rather than the accumulation of new wealth from the Sony deal. The contrast between Mary Austin's choice to liquidate physical assets and the mission of reclamation led by Kashmira illustrates a vivid picture of internal family tension. One woman oversees the commercial finality of the estate by selling the music, while the other tries to retrieve the tangible pieces of her brother's history. These tensions do not suggest open warfare between the two women, but they do highlight two very different ways of honoring a person who is gone. With the billion-pound Sony deal, Freddie Mercury's entire creative output has become a permanent asset for a massive media corporation. Mary Austin sees this as the final step in her work as his executor, and she has successfully turned his art into a secure financial future. Kashmira knows that no amount of money can replace the personal journals or the intimate household objects that were sold off during the recent auctions. While the sale brought immense wealth to the family, it also dismantled the physical surroundings that once defined Freddie's private existence. By trying to buy these items back, Kashmira is rejecting the idea that every part of her brother's life should be reduced to a price tag. Sony might own the music now, but the man himself still belongs to his family. This massive financial divide highlights a deeper story about loyalty and the various ways people choose to remember those who changed the world through their art. Even though Mary Austin has now joined the ranks of the wealthiest women in Britain, Kashmira continues her quiet search for the things that remind her of the brother she loved. The billion-pound deal stands as the biggest story in the music industry, but the Bulsara family knows his true value lies in things money cannot buy. Watching the world treat her brother's life as a collection of high-value transactions remains a deeply sensitive issue for Kashmira. She wants to keep his private world within the family bloodline, regardless of the billion-dollar deals happening in corporate boardrooms. Her rescue mission serves as a way of balancing the commercialization of a legend with the quiet preservation of a brother's memory. February 18, 2026 marked 36 years since Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage at the 1990 Brit Awards for his final public appearance. For his sister Kashmira, that night at the Dominion Theatre stays with her as a painful turning point because it signaled the end of their family privacy. She saw her brother standing there, looking much thinner and quieter than the electric performer the public knew, and she understood right then that their lives were changing forever. That specific evening saw Freddie's private health struggle become a matter of global speculation, and the quiet sanctuary the Bulsaras had built began to break under the pressure of constant curiosity. Now that this anniversary has passed, it reminds everyone why Kashmira is so focused on bringing his personal belongings back to the family home. Her goal is to restore the sense of dignity she feels was stripped away during those final years when the world refused to look away. Mary Austin is preparing to release a significant book called A Life in Lyrics on September 1st, 2026, which will feature many unpublished drafts and personal stories. Fans will likely value these insights, but the family sees his private thoughts being turned into a commercial product. Looking at her brother's legacy, Kashmira views her quiet work of buying back physical items as a necessary way to balance the endless stream of new Queen releases. Her current actions are happening alongside major events, such as the upcoming celebrations for what would have been Freddie's 80th birthday. She is also focused on the 2026 Mercury Phoenix Trust Party in Montreux, which continues to raise money for AIDS research in her brother's name. While these grand public tributes carry on, Kashmira works behind the scenes to protect the tangible parts of his life that actually belonged to the family. In March of 2026, the music industry will release a special collector's edition of the Queen II album. This record is especially important to the Bulsara family because that era was when they first realized Freddie's big dreams were actually coming true. They still remember the excitement of those early recording sessions in London and the feeling that something incredible was starting to happen in those small studios. For Kashmira, these reissues are fine for the fans, but her real mission is about the brother she knew before the fame took over. She wants to make sure that when the massive billion-pound Sony deal is finalized and Garden Lodge is eventually sold, the Bulsara name still owns the pieces of Freddie's personal truth. The sister believes the real history of Farrokh Bulsara should not be owned by a giant corporation or a single heir who is not part of his original household. By finding and buying these items, she is securing her family's place in the story and ensuring they are the true guardians of his most intimate memories. This is her last act of love for the boy who used to practice his poses in their living room before he went out to conquer the world. Even as the business side of Queen grows larger, she is making sure the family stays at the heart of his legacy. She knows the music will be preserved forever through the Sony deal, but the physical objects from his life are limited and very precious. Her project has become a race against time to collect these things before they disappear into the hands of wealthy collectors who see them as financial investments. To the Bulsara family, Freddie's value is not about pounds or dollars, but about a shared history that only a sister is able to protect. That is why the £3 million she has spent so far is just the start of what she will do to honor his life. As long as she holds these items, Freddie remains part of the family he loved, and while the 2026 celebrations keep him in the news, the real Freddie stays safe in the Bulsara archives. Kashmira Bulsara spent decades in the quiet background while the world analyzed and sold every detail of her brother's life to the highest bidder. That changed when she decided to invest millions of pounds into reclaiming his personal belongings, marking a major shift from being a silent observer to a protector of his history. She realized that without immediate action, the physical evidence of his private world would disappear into the hands of anonymous collectors forever. This mission reflects the same resilience that defined the Bulsara family during their long journey from the island of Zanzibar to the peak of global rock stardom. They faced every challenge as a tight unit during their transition to a new life in London. That internal strength now drives Kashmira to secure these artifacts for future generations of the family bloodline. As Garden Lodge eventually transitions to a new owner, the doors of Logan Place will close to those who knew him best. These rescued items will provide the only physical connection to his private life for his surviving relatives. Such items represent a man who was far more than a stage persona to the people who shared his name and his home. There is no price tag for the objects that witnessed his transformation into a legend because these pieces of furniture and personal notes carry the weight of a shared past. £3 million is the amount she has invested so far, which is a small price to pay for the peace of mind that comes with knowing his legacy is safe. While news cycles focus on billion-dollar deals and high-end real estate, the quiet devotion of a sister remains the most real part of the Freddie Mercury story. Corporate boardrooms might own the music and a stranger may own the house, but the Bulsara family will always hold the keys to his personal truth. This reclamation project serves as the final act for a sister who refuses to let his soul be sold at a public auction house. Freddie Mercury was a gift to the world, but to Kashmira, he was a brother whose memory is worth every effort and every pound she can give. Every object she brings home ensures his spirit remains grounded in the family that believed in his dreams long before the world heard his voice. The story of Freddie Mercury concludes not with a corporate sale, but with a final homecoming.